states shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participating, be denied benefits, or be subject to discrimination under any educational program. And this was put in place back in 1972. And as I mentioned, they just made the very first modifications to this act and this plan that went into it. They issued it in May, and it went into effect in August. And so we amended our policies and procedures slightly. So the most of what was in there, again, we are already doing. So let's walk through just a couple of the notable changes. They gave us a floor versus ceiling approach. So they said, instead of the maximum, here's what you're going to do, they said, here's the minimum. Here's what you need to do. So you need to provide interim measures. So you need to provide care for people if they have an occurrence. And so what that looks like and to what level we provide those services is kind of up to us as a university. We get to choose that. So it kind of gave us some flexibility to be able to go above and beyond. So again, we updated the policy. That is out on the website. If you just search Title IX, there's a whole micro page just designated to Title IX. So you can find the interim policy. You can find, it talks about our material review process. That's in there. They made it so it's public knowledge what information the deputy coordinators, the investigators, the Title IX coordinator, what information we're being trained from. And so people can see that, and if they have any questions about the materials, they can ask. The biggest thing for the employee side, but not necessarily for the student side, was the a live panel discussion and review, a hearing process. But as part of that, the live cross-examination. So if I have an advisor, if I have a representative against me as the complainant, and then there's somebody else who I've accused of misbehaving, they can cross-examine me. They can have their advisor cross-examine me. So that's a little bit new. And again, Ann will talk about that a little more. The other thing that changed were just some of the verbiage. They did a good job of defining the different terms. So complainant and recipient. So those are different. It used to be, oh, Ann, help me. What was it? I just know it is complainant and recipient now. So they changed what
party and responding party.
There you go. Reporting party and responding party. So just made it a little bit clearer on kind of what the terms are. They define the grievance process a little bit more. And then again, the definitions, they're the same ones that we used before, but they just made it part of the act that we're going to use the Clery definition of sexual assault, the OCR definition of sexual harassment. So they really clarified what those were. And again, it's the same thing that we were using. So I'm going to let Ann kind of take it from here and talk a little bit about what it looks like at the Bradley campus if there's a Title IX investigation or an occurrence.
Hi, everyone. As Crystal said, my name is Ann Hollis, and I am the Executive Director of Student Support Services within the Division of Student Affairs. And so I do have the role as a Title IX deputy, which means that anytime that there is a case that involves a student, whether it's student on student or faculty staff student, I'm involved to make sure that the student has all of the access they need to resources and supports, that they understand the process and how to work through all of that. And so, but my full-time job is, or my full-time focus, I should say, is generally within student affairs, working on the student support end. And I've had the distinct honor of working with Senate in a variety of ways in the past, and just have a lot of respect for this organization. So thank you for giving us the time to be here today. So to pick up where Crystal left off, and talking about some of the changes, one of the things that changed with the update that came from this new administration or from the DeVos letters is the standard for notice. So in the past, the university had an obligation to respond if we knew or should have known, that was the term, should have known, of an incident, then we had an obligation to respond. And one of the changes that came with this regulation is that we need to have actual notice through a formal complaint. So if we know through a third party, but we don't actually have a formal complaint, then we do not have a formal complaint to follow up on. And so it needs to be signed. It needs to be documented with us that a person wants to file a complaint. And so that's one of the things that has changed. And even if a person wants to explore like informal measures, which I can talk about here for a little bit, then they also need to sign that with us. And so you can either go through the formal grievance process of student conduct and filing charges in the investigation, or you can do an informal complaint. And sometimes when students do an informal complaint, it's because they want supports or resources, but they actually don't want to go through the process of filing charges against another student or against faculty staff. And so some informal resolution or some informal supports that they might be looking for, say that two students have a class together and the student who is filing the complaint doesn't want to go through the full grievance process, but they're in a lab together and they don't want to be in the same lab group anymore. The person who's reporting it says, you know, I'm fine to stay in the class, or I'm fine to move sections, or, you know, we need to work something out, but I do not want to go through the full grievance process. So that's one example of an informal support that we could offer, or one way that we could support a student who may not want to go through all of the formal processes, but does need some support, access to counseling, you know, in terms of resident hall moves, if we need to separate people, we can do that as well. So it's important to know that we would provide those accommodations and those remedies to people, whether formally or informally, but either way, they have to document it with our office that they want to move forward one way or another. So that is one change. The next change is, well, this actually isn't a change, but kind of walk through this. So reporting options. So the violation has happened. Crystal talked about whether it was the sexual assault or harassment, stalking, dating, domestic violence, all of those things. Once the Title IX representative or designee receives the report, then the appropriate university official follows up. And so the person who follows up is generally the person who has the most control, for lack of a better word, over the person who is being accused of committing the act. And so if it is a faculty, if it's a student reporting against faculty or staff, then HR would be the people to follow up on this because they have the most control. Again, I'm using that in quotations, but it's the word that makes the most sense, that people tend to understand the most, over the person who is alleged to have done the behavior. And so if it's student on student, then student conduct follows up because students fall under the code of conduct. And so just so you know, again, I would be involved anytime a student is involved, whether they are the reporting party or the complainant is the term we have to use now, even though I hate that term. They are the ones filing that report. But the people who would own the process of like adjudicating the case, it would be the person, it would be the entity that has the most control over the person who's being accused. And so any reports can be made through the Title IX email, which is listed here. It's also at the end of this, as well as reports can be made through any of the resources that are going to be listed at the end of this presentation, which include myself, Ryan Baer, who is the Executive Director of Conduct, the police. You know, sometimes people want to file reports through RAs who can help get connected to the campus resources. There are also two places on campus that you can go, or two places that you can go if you want to just talk through the process and have some confidentiality before you file a report. And one of those is at the Bradley Center for Wellness and Counseling. You can see a counselor on campus, and even if it's not in our, you know, 8 to 5 office hours, we always have a Bradley counselor on call that can work with Bradley students who have experienced any sort of Title IX violence. And that person could talk to you confidentially about your reporting options and, you know, what resources and supports are available to you, and you know, what options you have to move forward. The other organization that I always want to make sure I give a strong recommendation to is the Peoria Center for Prevention of Abuse. And we have a great partnership with our local agency, our local Center for Prevention of Abuse. therapists and the counselors out there and the victim advocates. And so if a student goes to the hospital, say they've been assaulted and they go to the hospital, then a victim's advocate from the Peoria Center for Prevention of Abuse is called to be there to help that person and answer any questions and kind of serve as a liaison. And that person also understands the Bradley policies. And so if it's a Bradley student who has questions about resources on campus, the Center for Prevention of Abuse would be a great resource for that student to talk to about who they could reach out to on campus, what options they have if they want to move forward, both formally or informally in the process. So talking about the procedures, one of the changes that came with the new guidelines stated that we have to guarantee due process on both sides. And so we have to be fair, we have to be impartial, and that we are required to make sure that everybody understands that nobody is perceived to be guilty or responsible. I shouldn't say guilty, that was an error on my part. I should say responsible. Because Title IX is a civil statute, it's not a criminal statute. We're not finding somebody guilty or not guilty, we're finding them responsible or not responsible. And so, I'm sure if you've ever watched Law and Order, and you have, because now you're hearing that dun-dun in your head right now, right? Yeah. You know that beyond a reasonable doubt is a criminal statute, right? So a civil statute is a much lower burden of proof. It is a preponderance of evidence, which is just more likely than not to have happened. So just 50%, sorry, I got dogs and kids and they're jumping on me. 50% plus just a little bit more means a preponderance of evidence. And that's when we find a person responsible for violating the civil statute. And so we need to make sure people understand that somebody is not responsible for violating that civil statute until we go through the entire process and have properly supported both sides of the situation. And so the new legalities also told us that Title IX is only limited to cases which have occurred in the United States, whereas in the past, study abroad, for example, would have been covered under Title IX, and now it's not. We must have control over the harasser and the context of the harassment. And so it has to have taken place within the context of a university activity or a university sponsored program. Whoever is reporting the violation has to be a member of the institution that they are seeking support from, and it must meet the definition of sexual harassment that we have laid out previously from the OCR and VAWA lists. And so I will say just one caveat on this, where it talks about that you must have control over the harasser in the context of the harassment. If a student comes to me and says, I was harassed by somebody at U of I, or I was assaulted by somebody at U of I, while we do not have control over the person who is being accused of that, if our Bradley student wishes to move forward with any sort of criminal complaint, we can support them in working with the authorities at that other institution to make sure that it is properly adjudicated through the criminal system. It wouldn't be civil, again, because it's Title IX and the complainant has to be a member of that institution, but we could certainly support them if they wanted to move forward with any sort of criminal charges. Person also has the option of filing a civil complaint through their local entity. And so just because you can't file a civil complaint against somebody or through the Title IX process at U of I, you could file a civil complaint against somebody in that Champaign jurisdiction. And so we could certainly work with a student to make sure that they understand that process and all of the supports available to them for that. It's also important to note that these procedures and policies extend to all off-campus jurisdiction and buildings, such as any property that is owned or controlled by recognized student organizations. Another way to say that is a lot of the buildings on Fredonia. In our situation, all of the Greek houses and things would be recognized as university owned and controlled and would fall under Title IX. So as I mentioned, the grievance process must treat parties equitably. Both parties are allowed to have advisors, and the advisor can be any one of the persons choosing, including an attorney. And so if somebody, if the person filing the grievance has access to an attorney and the person who is responding, the recipient of the complaint does not, then the university has to provide them with a trained advisor to help support them through the process. We have mandates as an institution about the training that we are required to have, both as investigators, as Title IX, as the Title IX coordinator, any deputies that are assigned, any sort of hearing board, how to train. We have to all be trained in how to do that. And all of the training that we have gone through is listed on the Title IX website. As I mentioned again, it's preponderance of evidence, and that is true for complaints against students, as well as any complaints against employees as well. Okay. Finally, one of the last things that I want to talk about is the appeal process. And every student has the right to appeal, whether the case went in your favor or it didn't. You can appeal the outcome of the case. And all parties receive notification of the appeal. They are welcome, like I said, to appeal the outcome. Written decision has to be given to both parties at the final decision or when the appeal is finalized. Whoever the appeal decision maker is cannot have had any role in the investigation process. So often the appeal is Nathan Thomas, the Vice President of Student Affairs, because he is not the person who usually hears or adjudicates any of the case. And reasonably prompt, meaning we try to take care of this in a quick turnaround, but reasonably prompt also includes things like taking into account breaks and for the students' end as well. And so, we would try to move quickly because the university isn't closed over break. We're generally working with the exception of that 2 week at like the end of December. But knowing that students sometimes aren't around and have a hard time, getting things in the light of finals and other stuff that going on, we're trying to be sensitive to that as well. Crystal, there was one more thing that I thought we had in here that I guess I forgot. And it is gone. It was something about appeals. It's gone. If it comes to me during the question and answer portion, I will certainly chime in.
Was it the part where we have to give copies of all the documents to both parties?
No, I can't remember exactly what it was, but we would provide. Oh, I know what it was. So one of the changes also talks about in terms of the once the decision is made or any documents that come in. People have 10 days to review their files and then submit any arguments against the information that is being shared. And then there's 10 more days after that to, again, review any of the new documentation that has come in. So the changes in the process that have come from this, these changes from the administration from Washington have lengthened the length of time that it can take to finalize these situations. And so whereas before it was a 60-day time frame for us to get it wrapped up, the length of time is much greater now because we have these built in like 10 days and 10 days periods on and on to allow people to review their files and make sure that they can address any questions. So that 60-day start to end time frame is no longer in effect. So Chris and I just threw a lot of information at you in a very short amount of time. But are certainly willing to take any questions that you might have. One more thing I wanted to point out in here, in the last page of this is the resources that we have available to you. I've mentioned some of these already. You can certainly file any reports or ask any questions at the Title IX coordinator email address that is listed here. Crystal and myself both have our information on here, as well as Karen Sorrell, who is a Title IX deputy through HR. Chief Josh Coe is certainly a partner with us on this. I'm Ryan Baer, the Executive Director of Student Conduct. And then you can report through Ethics Point, which is a reporting system through the university that is anonymous. It's a third-party system. And so if you want to report anonymously, it kind of goes through this third party and then it assigns it a case number and then it comes to us. And if we have questions for you, follow-up questions, we send it back by the case number to this third party and they reach out to you. We can never communicate with you directly so that your identity is always protected. But there are two confidential resources on campus that I want to be sure that I make available to you. And that is, again, the Center for Wellness and Counseling and the Center for Prevention of Abuse, who also have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline that I really encourage students to take advantage of too, should you have any questions. But speaking of questions, what questions do you have for us now?
Thank you both for sharing with us. I am going to set an initial questioning period of 5 minutes. And then after those 5 minutes, I'll entertain a motion to extend the questioning period. What I'm going to have you do, if you do have a question, is to simply put a question mark in the chat, and I will call on you in the order that you put your question mark.
A question. So this is Emma Hoytia, Student Body President. I caught wind, heard something along the lines of being connected to the CFO and how Title IX it reports to the CFO with any grievances. Is that true? Could you explain kind of who the higher ups are above you and how that process works?
I'm going to let Crystal take that one because it goes up through her.
Sure. So my reporting did go through Aaron Kasberg, who was legal counsel. So more recently with President Staniford coming and Jeff Blade coming, they've restructured some things. So HR as a role does report through Jeff Blade as the CFO. I don't believe, though, I'd have to look at this, and you might know, I don't know that he would necessarily have anything to do with the Title IX process unless it involved someone kind of within his department. I don't feel like this process goes up through the normal chain of command because it's a separate process.
And normally, anytime that anybody above, like in my tenure with Bradley, even though some positional things have changed, I've been at Bradley pretty much since '98 with a short jaunt away, which is probably since all of you were born. I've spent your entire lives on Sisson 1. Think about that for a minute. And so normally, if the vice president of finance or somebody like that was involved, it was only for reporting to insurance purposes, any sort of like major case that our insurance would want to know about. But it would not have any identifiable information. And also, we still retained legal counsel at the university. Yeah. And so if we had any questions about how to move forward or needed someone to help us with this, as certainly as processes and things, Aaron Katzberg would certainly be involved in that.
Yeah, because Jeff doesn't have any Title IX training like Aaron does. So I mean, I would still report through her as legal counsel, if there was anything that we needed to, and we do have access to outside counsel as well if we needed to go that route.
Great, thank you. Andrew Green.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
I had just a couple of questions based on the slides you gave out. You said that the institution is not required to act without a formal complaint. Can they act without one, is my question.
They could act through just the student behavior or the employee, like if it was an employee or faculty member was involved, they could, if they found out it was something, even if it's not deemed as a Title IX incident, it could still go through a disciplinary process or an investigation process, whether it be through HR or through student affairs.
And I believe Ann's was talking about the 60-day time frame no longer being relevant. I just wanted to know if you knew what a more current estimate might be.
So that's a really good question, and I think it sort of depends on the severity of the situation and how complex the situation is. Ideally, we would try to have that wrapped up still within a 60 to 90 day period, knowing that the more complex it is and the more people that are involved and witnesses and everything else, that could certainly get spaced out. But we don't want this to drag on for anyone. This is disrupting to all parties involved, and it is not anybody's intent to have that go on longer than it needs to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. So I do have a question here. And the question is, what kind of happened in the time frame when a complaint is filed and then kind of when things get to moving? Because it seems like it could be a long time before you get to a resolution.
So generally what happens if somebody files let's say that it is a situation where they're filing it just through the university and the police are not involved. Because sometimes when the police are involved and there's a criminal complaint as well as a civil complaint, it can slow down the civil while they're doing a collection of criminal evidence for at least for a few days, not extensively, but that can slow us down a little bit. So let's just talk specifically about a situation that it is just going through Title IX within the institution and not police, okay? So we're all on the same page. So if a person comes in, let's say they come into my office or I receive notification that a student has been assaulted. So I would reach out to that student, say it came in through an RA or you know, a staff member of some sort saying this resident told me. Then when I find out about that, I reach out to the student and I say, I understand that you have potentially experienced a violation of Title IX. Please know you don't have to work through this alone. I'd like to have a conversation with you just so you understand all of your rights, all of the resources and supports that are available to you. And whatever, you know, and I say this as much as I can, it is not my job to tell the student what to do. It is my job to give that student every piece of information that they need to make the best decision for themselves. Because fundamentally, Title IX is about a lack of control for a minute in a person's life or a length of time in a person's life. Sometimes it's much greater than a minute. But there was a point of time where that person did not have control over a situation. And the last thing we want to do is make them feel like they have lost control again by how the situation moves forward. And so my job is to give them all of the information that they need to make the decision that is best for them so that they can stay in control of their situation and how they choose to move forward with it. And so I send that email, and then sometimes people follow right up and sometimes they don't. So then if they don't hear from them, I send them another email about a week later. Again, sometimes they follow up, sometimes they don't. On the third attempt, we would send a letter and just say, we're trying to reach you. We just want to make sure that you know, you have the information that you need. But how quickly it can move forward somewhat depends on how fast that student wants to respond. And so once they respond, they come in, we have a conversation. We talk about the, you know, somewhat the details of the situation. In a broader sense, I do not get into the nitty gritty of it because I don't want them to have to tell me the story and then repeat it during the investigation and then repeat it again as needed. We just make sure that whatever happened is within the context of Title IX. And as Crystal said, maybe it isn't Title IX. And one example that I see of this often is bullying, where people are facing harassment, but it isn't necessarily sexual harassment. You know, it still falls under the Student Code of Conduct as being inappropriate and in a violation of the Code of Conduct, but we would handle it through the Student Code of Conduct and not through Title IX. And so when the student comes in, we want to make sure that it falls under Title IX. And then if they, you know, we talk about if they want to file a report, if they don't want to file a report, what resources I can give them in the immediate to make sure that they have the support that they need to be safe and okay in the moment. And then get them connected with student conduct. And then student conduct would help them file the paperwork. And honestly, that could take 2 or 3 days, maybe. You know, the student would write up their statement and turn that in. Then Ryan would meet with the person who is being accused, the recipient of this report. And from that, we would start to gather the team together to investigate and everything else. That kind of goes back to the question that Andrew asked about the length of time. Depending on how many witnesses we would have to interview, how many supporting pieces of information we would have to go through all of that. You know, it can take a few weeks sometime to get all those students in and get the first round and second round and sometimes even third round of questioning done before you would get to the point of actually having the hearing and rendering some sort of verdict.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to extend the questioning period by 5 minutes.
Motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
The motion is seconded. We will extend the questioning period by 5 minutes. And I have a question here that says, how many Title IX complaints occurred last year? If you know that number.
Oh, I don't know that number off the top of my head. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem. We'll go to the next question here that says, what type of training is given to Title IX investigators?
Crystal, you want to take that since you had it on the website?
Sure. So We went through, it was a 2-day, all-day training. And if you go out to the Title IX website, again, if you just search by Title IX, it has over on the right-hand side, my name and Ann and Karen and the others that are listed, kind of the main contacts. And then in there, it has links to PDF of all the training that we went through. So someday when you need something to put you to sleep at night or something, some may find it very fascinating. You can go out there and look at that. So it's from all different things. It's a lot of the stuff that's most recently out there is the training that updated us on the policies and the changes in the rules and the regs. There's some examples in there, you know, of case studies that we've done that we work through kind of as a problem. You know, it'd be like any of your classes that you would go through, probably not as long, but those links are out there. So there's all kinds of different stuff that we get through ATICSA or through CUPA, which is the college and universities HR team. We get education from them that we can put out there. So we put the main ones that we've done out there.
Great, thank you. Andrew Green.
You spoke briefly about the process that comes with addressing the accused in the formalized process. What does that meeting look like?
What does that meeting look like? I'm sorry, Andrew, I want to make sure I understood your question.
I guess I want to know more about what the process is when someone goes through the formal process and then is being accused. What is that first meeting like?
So in that first meeting, they would meet with Ryan Baer, the Executive Director of Conduct, and he would present to them the charges that are being presented against them, you know, whether it is harassment or stalking or you know, sexual violence, domestic violence, and then would give them an opportunity to respond, to ask any questions that they might have. They would, you know, talk about all sorts of things in terms of supports that they would need, because again, whether whatever side of this situation you're on, it is life changing. And so we want to make sure that those who are being accused also have access to counseling, have access to all of the accommodations that the person filing the report would have as well, if they want to move rooms, if they have class conflicts. If in the, you know, if in getting the news that this charge has been filed, you know, they are going to miss class, they need to go home, they need to do those things to take care of themselves, and they need our office to notify and support them through that, we would do that as well. Does that answer your question? I want to make sure I got that.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a question here that says, how are the services and reporting for Title IX promoted to students so they know where to go?
So our Title IX information is all given to the freshmen through You Got This on the freshman education that they're supposed to take, that they're required to take. So they get it all through there. It is posted in the residence halls. It's posted in the classrooms. There are Title IX, like VAWA posters that are posted throughout campus. I believe that they're in the Greek houses as well. So those are most of the ways that we try to get that information out. But we are always, and then through like Sexual Assault Awareness Month and some programming that we do with campus partners, Bradley Heat and some others, we try to publicize ways that they could do that. But I'm going to say right now, if you have suggestions for ways that we could do this better, I am more than happy to take those suggestions and run with them, because I can think that we are doing a good job, but if it's not getting to the people who need to know about it, it doesn't matter what I think. And so if you are saying, hey, you're not doing a very good job, publicize it this way, please provide that feedback, because you're the experts in what information is getting out and what isn't. And so I would be happy for any help or guidance you could give us on that.
Great, thank you. Brandy Wayne.
Hi, my name is Brandy Wayne. I am the Director of Administration of Student Senate and an RA in Harper Wyckoff. So I thank you, Ann and Crystal, for coming today to talk about Title IX. My question is really just a response of student services, have you guys seen an increase? I know, Anne, you said that you don't know the numbers exactly, but do you feel like there's an increase of Title IX reports compared to last fall, and in response to COVID? And how has student services really responded to that?
So actually, I would tell you that the numbers are significantly down right now in terms of reporting, and whether that's because we're all in quarantine or we have so many students who are remote learners and just not interacting, our numbers are significantly down from this time last year. And I will tell you that I would, if I had to guess, and again, I'm guessing on this, if I'm completely off, I will be sure to let Emma know so she can correct you all with the right information. We probably had 6 to 8 full formal investigations last year. What I see a lot of in my office are people who come in who just wanted to document what happened and have some sort of support, whether it was counseling, whether it was some class accommodations, whether it was, a room relocation or a class relocation or something like that. Those are the ones that I see the most of. It's not necessarily people who want to go through the process, but I bet I saw 20 to 25 just informal, hey, can we talk about this? I need somebody to know this happened and to help me through it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you both to Crystal and Anne for joining us here today, talking about some very important things, especially, it's not something that we talk about often, but I think we need to hear more of. So thank you both for joining us.
Thank you so much for giving us the time.
Yeah. Have a great rest of your semester.
Thanks,
Stay
guys.
safe, and please let us know if we can be of help to any of you in the future.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
All righty, we're going to move along here on our agenda. So are there any questions or concerns about last week's minutes? If not, we will move on. Okay. Department reports, starting with academic affairs. Josie.
All right, my committee, we have started to work on the online classes check-in form. We are working on the basic questions that we'll be sending out to advisors so that way they can check in with students about online classes. We've finished a flyer. Now with some of the new Title IX sites, I think we'll be adding to that flyer. Currently, we're also working on getting it approved to where students can test out of some of the entry-level music classes. And as of today, we're going to be looking at the pass-fail option and exploring that for the semester as well.
Great, thank you. I'm moving on to campus affairs with Harini.
Hi guys, so last week of quarantine, you probably all saw the email. So we'll be resuming classes Wednesday with stricter rules. So we'll still be following, rules similar to quarantine. So I'm assuming AJ is going over that more. So he'll I think he'll go over it more. So I'll kind of move on. So one thing that I do want to point out from that email is that students can now request to go online at any time. So before they had deadline, but now they have taken out the deadline. So you can request to go online anytime, and the request for approval is linked here. And so exceptions do include practicums and labs. So another thing our committee worked on for the past few weeks was having socially distanced in-person meeting with professors and to see if that was possible at all after quarantine was lifted. And so we reached out to the engineering department. And Dr. Julie Ryer said it was more like a universal university wide recommendation, and it's not something they could really lift, and they're trying to keep everybody safe. So office hours will be continued online as before. So yeah.
Alrighty, we're going to move on to campus safety and community relations with AJ.
Hi, everyone. So as Harini was saying, and she put in her notes, The students have been split up into 3 sections: isolation, quarantine, and the general population. And what we're going to end up doing with that, this is pretty new information for us. So what I'm going to do with that, jumping to my second point here, is we're going to do the exact same thing that we had done previously with the COVID numbers, where we're going to gather the most relevant and important information out of that very wordy and long email and put that in a more condensed version that we can send to PR and share with students. And then jumping from what we were working on last week, recommendations for quarantine emails were finalized and sent to Dr. Higgs, as well as Health Services and Ann Hollis. And I haven't heard anything back from that, but I'm sure their feedback will be nothing but positive.
Great, thank you. We're going to move to diversity and inclusion with Emmanuel.
Hello, everyone. So we have resumed talks with the Black organizations on campus regarding the BLM campaign. We paused it due to the quarantine period we just had. And we have decided to move all the events in the campaign to to a virtual format. And right now we're discussing the logistics, advertisement, and dates with the Black organizations on campus. And we're also in talks with She Speaks on a potential campaign to address, to bring more awareness to Title IX. Communication has been a little bit slow, but I think we're moving forward. That would be all.
Great, thank you. Internal Affairs, Karen.
Alrighty, so I just wanted to get started and talk about constituency reports next week. Those are going to start counting as part of the requirements for being on Senate. So anybody who isn't a chairperson is going to be responsible for submitting a constituency report. And I have the link in the minutes. So if you go to the minutes, you can start sending them in. Preferably on Mondays before GA. You can do it prior to that, but that is the due date. If I do see that you didn't submit a constituency report, that will count towards you being a senator in bad standing. I also have linked a PowerPoint on what is considered a good constituency report versus a not very good one. I don't know if we have time to look over them, so if you have time, please, I strongly recommend you look at them because these are very specific and not super vague. Constituency reports are really important. We use them to kind of guide where we're going to be going for our chair people. So if you guys could just, specific, real issues going on, preferably no complaints, that would be amazing. Next week, we're going to have another guest speaker. As David said in the email earlier today, please remember you need to be dressed in business casual with your camera on. If not, you will be docked as it would go towards you being a senator in bad standing. Also, freshman results came in. We have our 8 new freshmen, super exciting. They will be sworn in next week. I'm super excited for you guys to meet them. And then today we're going to be voting for a new chairperson, which we will talk about in new business.
Great, thank you, Karen. Alrighty, public relations intern with me, which hopefully will not be for much longer. But we had Rise of the Red over this past week, and we picked 50 winners to do a contactless pickup. So we did it all virtual this time, which I'm sure some of you saw on our Instagram page. And it went really great, actually, for exposure. We had upwards of almost 300 likes on the actual post, and we gained at least 300 plus followers, pushing our follower count over 1,000 now, which was the goal for the end of the year. When we surpassed that already. So it was a really good experience, and yeah, definitely. Also going to mention we have a PR chair candidate, so you'll hear more about that later in the General Assembly. We're going to move to student body executive reports, starting with Director of Administration, Brandy Wayne.
Hi everyone. I hope everyone is having a great Monday and not too much of a monkey Monday. Just learned that that's not a universal phrase like Hump Wednesday. It is one where you all will learn from me. Remember Monkey Monday. I will say it every Monday. If you've had one, I am so sorry. Hopefully it goes a little bit more calmer for the rest of the evening. Just to echo what Karen has said, attendance have not been recorded the past few weeks, but it is so imperative for you guys to do your constituency reports and dress business casual. Again, echoing what she said, if you're not on camera, please have a good reason why your camera is not on, because that will be not counted toward attendance. There have been a lot of complaints lately regarding a lot of things that are happening, even if that's communication, if that's being on campus, if that's lack of hours for any of the academic buildings. Those are things that you can write in your constituency reports, but please look at the link that Karen put in the minutes, because everything that I just listed are things that you can talk about within your constituency reports, but it has to kind of have this explanation or this solution to it. So if you're saying that the hours for the library are just absolutely terrible, great, they're terrible. What do you want to do about it, right? Those are things that you have to outline. So please look at the link that Karen put in there with a PowerPoint on how to write a good constituency report. If your report isn't thorough, or if it's just, I hate Braille University, done, it's not going to count. Right? It's not going to count because there's nothing there. There's no constituency reports. It's not something that you're reporting on behalf of yourself, but on the behalf of your constituents. All of you guys are representing either a class or all the classes. So please, please, please do really well on that. The chairpersons cannot do anything if you don't have anything to give. So please keep that in mind.
Can I make a side comment about that? When you guys are sending constituency reports, make sure the report goes to the right chairperson. So if you're complaining about the COVID restrictions, don't send that to PR. Send it to the department that constituency report belongs to.
To me.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, what Karen has said, please make sure you do the right one. If you're not sure, that PowerPoint also lists it. If you think you made a mistake, it's not going to count against you. Obviously it'll just be a little bit more work, but yeah, that's all I have for you all.
Great, thank you. Chief of Staff Ellie Hawkins.
No report.
Great. And then moving down to me. Alrighty, folks, next week, I heard back from the president's office, and President Standiford will be joining us as our guest speaker for GA next Monday. And again, it's going to be business casual, and I'm going to ask that you have your camera on. Again, this is a commitment that we have all made, and we want to be able, and I know circumstances sometimes are very different for people, but as much as you can, please be in business casual with your camera on, so that we can show our guest speakers, whoever that may be, in this case the president, that we're serious about hearing what they have to say, and we respect the dignity that each of our offices come with. As always, we are filling vacancies. We have at-large positions to fill. We have class positions to fill. So please, if you know anyone, my email is always open. Karen's email is always open. Brandy's email is always open. If you feel like you need to suggest people, and we can get them more information about how to join the Senate, what it takes to join the Senate, and things of that nature. So please let us know, and we'll gladly reach out to those people. President of the student body, Emma Hoytia.
All right, so you guys already received a message, email from the president's office about the updated COVID restrictions. So give that a read. Let your chair people know of your, tell them your reaction to it, your issues with it, things that you appreciate, and then I would love to chat with them about it this Friday at our cabinet meeting. So read it, let your chair people know what you think. And then the developer of an app called Pericles, which is an app that puts together all things voter registration, absentee ballot request, I guess explanation of all candidates, which seems like a lot of people in the US, but I don't have all the answers yet. He just reached out to me today, and he's also working with the athletics program. So I'm talking to Karen Carty, who has a job in the athletics program office, should I say, and not sure what's going to come of that, but I think we'll probably just end up promoting it on social media. And if you guys want to go look at it, it's in the App Store right now, and like I said, called Pericles. It's in the minutes. So go download it, see what it's like, and let me know what you think of it. And then, as always, like Brandy said, it's a Monkey Monday. Life is a little crazy, so check in with yourself.
Great, thank you. And moving on to advisor reports with Advisor Coy.
Hi all. So kind of my reports in there, but I'll just say there's a lot of questions that have come up immediately regarding student organizations and what they can and can't do, because it says they must all be virtual. If you have questions regarding that, Emma kind of has some access to a document that we're working on to get some further answers. I have a meeting 9 a.m. tomorrow that I'm working on. So either if you have questions or something like that you need clarified, send me an email. We're working on things ranging from tabling to what will the mask policy be in Markin with working out, to just lots of different elements, and even questions on what's going to be happening with homecoming. So my email is tcoy@bradley.edu, or you can always contact Emma too from there. So we'll do that. I just want to mention too, for those who are members of student organization, there is late funding request available from SABRC, and that window is open right now. If you are planning an event, you should really think about how it's going to be done virtually in light of my last report I just did. And then I will just mention again on the voting kind of different element, Women and Gender Studies is providing a lot of information on voter registering, absentee ballots, all that different information through their Instagram and Facebook, with doing lots of regular updates. So that may be something you want to take and check out, especially if you're not registered at this point to vote, or you haven't requested a absentee ballot, or if you would like to request a mail-in ballot. They have all the details through those sites there. I will mention that next week is Homecoming and Founders Day. We're going to have a lot more details of that. There will be a special email going out regarding that, so that we know exactly what we can and can't do regarding Homecoming and Founders Day. There is still a streaming concert that's planned that's kind of very exciting. There's some different things going on with it. As of right now, we still have fireworks planned for the lighting of the bee, and ACBU has over 1,000 t-shirts to give away, and Student Senate has about 600 t-shirts to give away for Founders Day. So there's a lot of things happening and a lot of free clothes. So we'll just get some information out there coming as soon as we get some answers tomorrow morning. But it is homecoming. Even without a soccer match or anything else, it's a great time to be at Bradley, and hoping you just see lots of spirit and things like that around campus. That's me.
Great, thank you, Advisor Coy. Moving on, are there any constituency reports? And I cannot see the chat. So if one of the SBOs could look at the chat, if someone puts something in there I can't see.
Looks like you're good.
Great. We have no unfinished business, and moving on to new business. So I'm going to hand this portion off to our parliamentarian, Karen Fregoso.
Thank you. Okay, so recently there was a vacancy as the chairperson of PR. After weeks of waiting, we finally have someone. Super exciting. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to give Himal, is that pronounced correct? Okay, so Himal is going to come up and speak for, I think, 5 minutes, give us a little spiel about why he thinks she should be on Senate, and then we'll go into exec, talk about it, and after that, I'll send out the emails. You guys can vote. I'll count up the votes. We'll invite him back in, and I'll read the results to everybody. So Himal, do you want to give a little speech?
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm Himal. I'm currently a junior majoring in computer science with a concentration in software, web, and security development. And then I also have another major in French and a minor in management information systems. From freshman year, I always wanted to be part of student senate, but things came around and somehow, some way I was able to make time for it. And this semester, especially this year, now I have a lot more time and focus on student senate. A little bit of previous experience about myself is I currently, for the past year or a little bit more than a year, I've been working as the social media chair and the website administrator for Theta Cut Fraternity here on campus. So any posts that we do on our stories or on our social media programs, I am the one making those posts along with along with anything regarding onto our Instagram or Facebook. They relate to how we are as a community. So that is an experience in my public relations. I always really wanted to join Student Senate, and in specific to public relations, I can help with Student Senate, like reaching out and having someone that can help reach out our audience of our whole student body. I think me being that person, I can be fully committed to having ways working with the committee and just spreading more information, maybe having something fun to do like we had with the Rise of the Red on the Instagram a couple days ago. I have experience with Adobe Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. So creating things that can be more eye-appealing and have more wow or pizzazz, we can help with that. In regards to other things related to public relations, just spreading information about who we are as students in it, especially now that a lot of things are online, figuring out a way how we can host doing things online that everyone can participate. So it's not just everyone that's on a campus that's physically here. We can also have people that are doing remote learning back home, essentially. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm willing to answer those.
Great, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And I'm going to open up the floor for a 2-minute questioning period. So again, if you have a question, please put a question mark in the chat and I'll be sure to call on you. Student Body President Emma Hoytia.
Hi, so you've discussed that you're in several different groups on campus and you're, kind of spread out. Are you aware of the time commitment that goes into being a part of cabinet, and how do you plan on managing your time?
Of course. I understand Student Senate is a big part of, and if I was to be the chairperson, I understand with time commitment. Most of my classes are online and some of them are even asynchronous, which is nice in that sense. Being in part of the student cabinet, I think I can focus my time because I know that, I might have like 10 things going on, but I can know when I have to put my focus on Student Senate, I can put my focus on there. We have 24 hours in a day, so if I need to spend 20 of those hours working on Student Senate, I can more than willing to spend 20 hours on Student Senate.
Great.
Just to follow up, realistically, how many hours a week do you think you have to give to Student Senate?
Oh, okay. So can I just ask you, like, in a week, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Considering that, I I would say maybe even 10 to 20 sometimes, depending on how much of work is needed to be done in that week, you know. It
Wonderful,
should,
thank you.
Great. Andrew Green.
Do you have any current ambitions or desires to bring to Student Senate as the PR representative?
yeah, so I know like a big thing right now with the whole quarantine situation is a big thing. So there could be very much confusion. There could be a lot of like unsure like what's going on. So I feel like as Student Senate, being able to know that explaining to the student body in our like posts and stuff, being able to show that, oh, you can reach out to us or you can reach out to your senators in that way, essentially.
Great, thank you. Karen Fregoso.
All right, one like quick question. I guess, do you have any ideas to get the student body engaged with Senate during like while we're virtual?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry, it sounded kind of weird. Do you have any like ideas that would get people to want to learn more about Senate while we're virtual? So like things outside of social media, things that, like something that would make a student wonder, you know, what is Senate doing?
Yeah, I think one thing that's a very good question. I would have to say at the second right now I don't, but I would have to put more thought into it. But I think I would say a good way to look at it is just doing like a general poll of the student body and seeing what they want from us and then going from there. So like say I want more information on like who was our guest speaker. So I guess in that sense, to know what the student body wants from us, essentially, to start off with.
Great, thank you. Unless there is a motion to extend the questioning period, I will now entertain a motion. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I will extend, is there a motion to extend the questioning period?
Motion.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Alrighty, we will extend the questioning period for another 2 minutes, starting with Josie.
You mentioned that you were in charge of social media for your fraternity for at least a year. Did you see any, or could you explain any type of improvements that you made to their social media following or in cultivating any type of social media following?
Yeah, of course. I definitely have seen a growth. So our social media was not used at all, pretty much, before I started using it. With that, I would say the growth of like people following us and having more people understanding, like I know people have reached out from different organizations on my social media where I can reach out to them. Oh, they wanted to host, like have us go to some event on campus or event off campus in near town. So it really helps with also reaching out to other organizations in not only in the Bradley community, but all in Peoria County.
Great, thank you. Harini.
So you said you were passionate about joining Senate since freshman year. So what exactly intrigued you to join Senate? Like what kind of projects, like what about Senate made you want to join?
Yeah, of course. So when I said like freshman year, what happened was I just wasn't confident in myself to like even try. So then eventually I just didn't. But it was always in the back of my head. I always wanted to be able to like be a person that people can go to and ask questions, in a sense where like sometimes people feel if they know at least one person, they can contact them somehow And I feel like with me being that person for some people at least, they can ask, oh, what does the student senate think about this?
Great,
then-
thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, and then like if I don't know, I can bring it to someone else on the Senate that does.
Great, thank you. So the timing for questioning has elapsed, and seeing no more questions, I'm going to now entertain a motion to enter executive session.
Motion?
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second.
The motion has been seconded, and we are now going to move into executive session, which means that the candidate and all members of the public are going to be asked to leave this, they're going to be moved out of this session.
So I'll explain how this is going to work. I'm going to send everyone into a breakout room. I need everyone to decline that